Most of you guys couldn't tell, but I completely redid this rear end because I did have some concerns about the MDF. As I continued to think about it, I thought that MDF is probably not the best material to use because it will swell up if any water does get to it. I thought I was thinking ahead by trying to put resin over the entire thing, but I found that it probably still would have gotten to it eventually, and it just really kind of scared me as I thought about it more and more. So I went ahead and did what a lot of you guys suggested, and I got some marine grade plywood, and then from there we completely encased that in fiberglass. So not only is there already water resistant wood under here, there is a layer of fiberglass and the resin encasing it, so there's no reason any of the water should get to it. There was a couple other reasons I decided to redo it. I was able to redo it a lot better, and it's gonna be a lot stronger in the end. When we did apply this front sheet here, we also fiberglassed this front face and down here for a better bond from the fiberglass to the fiberglass that's on the wood and the bottom of here. And then also there were some little spots inside there. There was the receiver for the factory bumper, and then some little holes that we went ahead and fiberglass completely over, so now that is waterproof, whereas before we would have had to try and do it from the back side of the car and it just wouldn't have been quite as good. So this is significantly better than it was previously. It really didn't take all that much time. It only took about 2 days to fully redo everything. I had to make a completely new sheet of fiberglass, and it is much better and much stronger than it was before. And now we can move on to the sides. We have the majority of the Bondo knocked off of these sides and the trunk area. But before we move on, I want to take the DA and I'm going to completely clean all of the surfaces that we are going to be modifying from here on. That way when we start fiberglassing, we have a really nice clean surface for it to bond to. While we're waiting for this dry, I want to talk about a couple other concerns. A lot of you guys were asking why I didn't use metal, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, my welding skills really aren't that great, and in order to make a structure like this, you're going to want to use 22 gauge, and that's because that's what the factory uses. But if we were to do this in 22 gauge, it would be way more floppier than this. This has almost no give. I can push as hard as I can and it'll flex very little, whereas you can see here, there's a lot more flex. Being so thin, it would have to have a huge amount of structure back here, and there would just have to be a lot more engineering, and it would be so much more involved, whereas using fiberglass for me is a lot easier to just create things. I think if there's a dent here and you need to cut it out and you need to replace it with metal, you definitely replace it with metal. You're not going to fiberglass that, but for actually creating things, fiberglass is just so much easier because if you ever needed to sand this down, let's say a point here is a little bit higher than a point here, I'm able just to sand that down, whereas if it's 22 gauge and this is a little bit higher, you're going to sand through that metal really, really quickly. You can't just body work that. So if anything warps, which it always does with the thinner metal, especially when I do it, and it would just be a huge mess and probably wouldn't turn out nearly as good, and it probably wouldn't be done as quickly just because it probably wouldn't be as flat as this, believe it or not. This is extremely straight and is getting us super close almost right away. One more thing, because I know some of you guys are going to be asking about the taillights. We are going to be putting the taillights in, but I want to make sure that I get the clearance for the trunk done, so that way we can have the trunk exactly where it needs to be sitting, exactly where the factory had it, and then from there we can measure down from there and use that as a reference, because this obviously isn't factory, so this isn't 100% correct. So from there we'll be able to correct this, make this 100%, and from there we'll be able to measure and cut out for our taillights. So now I have our cardboard mocked up so that way it contains this expanding foam here, and that means no forks holding it up this time. This is obviously going to hold it inside there, and this is a general shape a little bit bigger than we need it, so that way hopefully it fills up inside there and doesn't get absolutely everywhere, and we're not wasting a ton of this stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and fill this in. We might have to poke some holes and then fill it in there, but I think we can probably try and get it in from here and these gaps here, and then over here there are way more gaps all the way around here, so we should be able to fill all this up. So I've let this foam sit for about a day. Hopefully it's about as dry as it can be, and we're gonna go ahead and shape this down. We're gonna get it as close to the shape that we want it to be, and then from there we can bring it down just a tiny little bit, and then we're gonna go ahead and fiberglass this. I've been going at this for a while now, and I wasted a bunch of fiberglass. I got it all in that bucket and a little bit over there. This is really not working out all that great. Maybe this is why it didn't turn out that great last time. Good thing it's only these corners. I'm not gonna bother redoing it, but it is turning out pretty bad. It is almost sucking in the fiberglass and bringing it way in. This is the first of a few layers of fiberglass, so it's gonna fill in a little bit, but this stuff is really just eating up the glass. It was nice and flat, and I was real careful and made it almost exactly to the shape, and then I brought it down just a little bit so that way the fiberglass would take up that space. But now with this, it's almost all wasted. You can see it's all warped, and it's looks just all weird. So obviously this is just not the best way to do it. Probably next time I really need to go back to the same place that I got my 5-gallon bucket of the resin, and I need to try and use some of their foam that they have. They have foam that's a lot better for this situation. I just didn't want to have to drive all the way down there. It's about an hour and a half away, but next time I think it's going to be worth it, especially if I'm going to be doing something much bigger. But for this project, I just wanted to use the little cans. I thought it would be okay if I took my time. Obviously not. But yeah, I would say this is not a good method for this. It's gonna work and it'll be better than last time, but it's not gonna be great. And luckily we didn't do the whole back end that way. It's only gonna be these little side pieces, and we're gonna use as much fiberglass as possible and try and stray away from using a ton of body filler like we did previously. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up off camera. Next time you see it, it's gonna be completely fiberglass. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel and the progression of this build, I do have the Bosozoku style merchandise like I'm wearing right now, and the Miata merchandise as well. So go ahead and check that out, link in the description. Anyways guys, that's gonna be it for today. Hope you enjoyed, and peace out.